Hi there, boys and girls. Today I'm going to read to you Peter Rabbit. And this happens to be, you know me and my pop-up books. This happens to be a Peter Rabbit pop-up book. So, it was written by Beatrix Potter and also illustrated by Beatrix Potter. Some of you might already know this story, but I thought it would be fun to share it and read it together again. So, once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in the sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dear," said old Mrs. Rabbit one morning, "you may go into the fields or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Mr. McGregor. Now run along and don't get into any mischief. I'm going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella, and she went through the wood to the baker's. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. But Peter, who was very naughty at times, ran straight away to the McGregor's garden gate, and squeezed underneath. First he ate some lettuces and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes, and then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of the cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting young cabbages, but he jumped up and he ran after Peter, waving a rake and shouting, "Stop, thief!" Peter was most dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes in the cabbages and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had unfortunately not run into the gooseberry net. And here's the net. Let me pull this. Boom. You can see it. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve, which he intended to pop on top of Peter, but Peter wiggled out just in time. And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can, and it would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath the flower pot. Nope, that's a little mouse, isn't it? He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each one, but then Peter sneezed. "Ka-choo!" Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Oh, do you see him peeking out there? And he tried to put his foot upon Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants. The window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter, so he went back to work. Oh my goodness. After a time, Peter began to wander about, going lippity-lippity, not very fast, and looking all around. He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans for her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him, and Peter, he began to cry. Then he tried to find his way across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently he came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his water cans. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of a hoe Scritch, scritch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently, as nothing happened, he came out and climbed upon a wheelbarrow, and he peeped over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned toward Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could go. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down upon the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole, and he shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking, and she wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost. I'm sorry to say that Peter was not very well during the evening. His mother put him to bed and made him some chamomile tea, and she gave a dose of it to Peter. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, well, they had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. And that's the end. Boys and girls, this story is so interesting to me because it reminds me that we all make mistakes and we all get in trouble. So today I'm going to have you write in your journal, Peter is a rabbit. He gets into a lot of trouble. He does not listen to his mom. One time I got into trouble because I what? We've all gotten into trouble before. Even Miss Van Winkle's gotten into trouble. I'd like for you to think about a time that you might have made a mistake and go ahead and sound out those words and put them in your journal. Are you noticing something? We are now using 2 pages in our journal. And today we are even writing 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences at least. I know you can do it, and I cannot wait to see your writing and your illustration. Don't forget to do your illustration and then post it for me to see. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.